Me now, Senator Tommy Tuberville from the great state of Alabama. Senator Tuberville, always a pleasure to see you, sir. I don't know. I mean, Trump spoke to Alabama. I don't know whether he was as strong on the economy as he was in South Carolina. I want to ask you about that. But I think the point is, all right, they're throwing everything they got, right? Joe Biden wants to throw Donald Trump in jail so he can't run against him for president. But here's Trump out there. And it's not just bashing back on the crazy legal cases, which are awful, but he's actually talking about the economy in a way that no one else has and citing his own accomplishments. I don't know. What'd you hear in the Alabama speech, and what do you think about this South Carolina speech?
Well, they're a little bit different, Larry, to be honest with you, but he hit a lot about economics, too, in Alabama on Friday night. You know, he was in great spirits. He just came from the, I guess, third indictment. But I tell you what, there's nobody that I've ever been around that will take the bull by the horn and run with it. And he sees this as a great opportunity, not just for him, but for the country, because they're defining who they are. You know, there's an iron-clad case against Joe Biden and his family. I've seen the documents. I've heard the whistleblowers. You've seen everything that they're doing. But they're using all this against President Trump, a former president, and they do not have an ironclad case. They're far from it. They know it, but they're trying to get the light off of the Biden family as much as they possibly can. But I tell you, he is up on his economics. He understands. We talked about fossil fuels. Larry, you can't do without fossil fuels in this country. It's impossible. President Trump knows it. We all know it. Even the Bidens know it. But that is their way to make sure that they can take control of this country and the people of this country.
Well, I think I want to come back to all that in a second, but I just think it's so interesting. You know, Trump could have spent an hour and a half in South Carolina and or Alabama, for that matter, blasting back on these crazy indictments. But at least in South Carolina, he puts out this is the best economic speech he's done. Now, he started talking about this, you may recall, at that so-called CNN town hall, where he brought the House down, talking drill, baby, drill, and tax cuts and deregulation and so forth. But, Senator Tuberville, my point is, despite everything Biden is throwing at him, Trump is still on message. People want to hear a growth and prosperity agenda. And even inside the Republican primaries, they have not heard that. And Trump has been talking about this for quite some time. And here he goes again. And, you know, I would say, sir, he couldn't be blamed if he, you know, blasted back on these crazy indictments. Get to that in a minute. But he didn't. He stayed on message. I mean, that's going to be a crucial message in this campaign. If you look at every poll, economy, number one, economy, jobs, and inflation. I mean, I think that's kind of pretty much remarkable. Restraint and moderation and substance.
Well, they're trying to get President Trump to go down a rabbit hole on all these indictments. They want him to spend his time and his effort defending himself. And he understands American people could care less. They want somebody elected president of the United States that's going to help them. Yeah. I've been over 5 or 6 states in the last 2 weeks, Larry, and they know that we're in trouble. The American people are not fooled any longer. They're hurting. Their prices are outrageous. It's getting worse. And they understand it all starts with fossil fuels. But President Trump's got the answer. He's going to talk about it, but he's also going to bring the answers to the forefront. And the American people like that. He is pushing back against all these so-called lawsuits. But I think he's going to spend more time with American people in the next year talking about their problems instead of the problems that the DOJ is pushing on him.
Yeah, I mean, he also has, look, he has public safety. He has border control, closing the borders and so forth. He wants to negotiate a peace with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, economy is not the only issue. I'm not making that case. He's also, you know, totally anti-woke. He'll defund schools that are engaged in critical race theory and things of that sort. But it just seems to me it's very smart politics, why he's run a good campaign and why he's so far out in the polls, that he has really stuck to this message, which I think is his bread and butter, just like it was in 2016 when he was on message. You know, Senator, I don't think he was on message in 2020. I think he was too much his own personal grievances. This time around, he's addressing America's personal grievances. And I think it's going to be very, very effective. All right, let me go to the matter of the scandals. This guy, Devin Archer, right, Hunter Biden's former BFF, did he blow the lid off of Joe Biden's defenses or not?
I know it. Yeah, sure he did. And of course, Joe Biden has said time after time he's really had no talk, no discussion with his son. We all know he has. The problem with Joe Biden is after he became vice president and was then moved out after President Trump took over, he had no clue he'd ever be president of the United States. So they didn't hide anything. Everything was on audio, was on the internet, text messages, phone calls. They didn't try to hide anything because they knew they could get by with it. Former vice president, nothing would be said. And all of a sudden, he's president of the United States, and he's looking around going, oh, heck, now what do? We do a cover-up. And the whistleblowers are bringing everything out. There's going to be more and more stuff come out, Larry. I'm hoping this doesn't get out of hand, with impeachment. I've been through impeachment trials. You don't, at the end of the day, nothing happens. We need to spend time on saving this country, Larry. We're in trouble right now. Our country is in bad trouble economically, foreign relations, our borders, crime. It is out of control, but the Biden administration have no answers. But I just hope the Republicans, and again, we need to go after them as much as we can, but we need to make sure we keep our eyes on the ball, and that's our country and the American people.
Senator Tuberville, it's interesting you say this. I couldn't agree more, 100%. I don't think the issue is impeachment. I want to see the Oversight Committee, and Judiciary and so forth, just keep plodding away, getting the facts, getting the evidence behind all of the bribery and corruption allegations. I think that Jamie Comer and Jim Jordan, the others, they just keep doing their job. That's much more. Getting those facts out are much more important than some kind of show trial called impeachment. I think you just put your finger on it. A lot of people may not agree with us, but I think you're dead right, sir. Let Oversight do its job. So far, it's done a heck of a good job, and I think they're going to continue to make a tremendous case.
Thank you. You're exactly right. American people want prices to come down. They want to get back to a normal country. Right now, this is not the United States of America. A lot of Democrats are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We cannot continue down this road with the crime and the borders. And it's all done by on purpose. All this thing is done to take the eye off the ball, get away from being an American citizen, and get us to an anti-American woke terminology and country, and we can't do that. We've got to get back to letting people be free and make money and go out and work and do the things that we've done in the past. But we're getting way away from our values in this country, Larry. And if we continue down this road, we're going to be in huge trouble.
One of the big shockers, sir, my view, as this election proceeds, this year and next year, of course, it's going to be about issues. The economy is going to lead the way, but it's going to be about all the issues you just mentioned. It's not going to be about politicized indictments or weaponized indictments. At the end of the day, it's going to be about issues and a future agenda for prosperity. And I think that's a big surprise. The reason I cited Trump's speech in South Carolina, well, A, nobody else is writing about it. I got a copy of it. And B, Trump is on message. I think his instincts are awfully good. Anyway, Senator Tommy Tuberville, as always, sir, great pleasure to see you. Thanks very much.